I'm Brian Warshaw.
And I'm Jay Yaz.
And this is Comics Now. Welcome to Comics Now. I'm Brian Warshaw, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Jay Yaz. Jay, how's it going?
It is going great, Brian. I start a new role at work on Monday, so I'm very, very excited about that because, not to get too into it, but I've been trying for this for a long time, and it's finally happened, so...
I know it. Yeah, congratulations. That's just
Thank you.
Outstanding. If I didn't think it would overload the mic, I would be clapping right now.
Oh, yes. How about you? How are things with you?
Things are going pretty good, I think. I'm kind of excited to be talking about something like Detective Comics 1000 tonight, so, yeah.
It's a milestone for sure.
It is. And, we started our friendship over reviewing Batman comics, and it's only fitting that we would be covering this.
Yes, and apologies to listeners, though we've covered so much Batman lately, but people like Batman, so, we can always find time to talk about it. And Andy's on vacation over at Holy Batcast. He's out of the country, so you're going to need some Batman podcasting in your life somehow, so we figured we'd, pick up the ball and run with it.
Just consider us the auxiliary. So anyway, let's jump into the news. And believe it or not, the news has nothing to do with Batman. So consider that your reprieve. If you're one of those few people that don't like Batman, consider this your reprieve. So anyway, the big one, Andrew and I talked about last week, Jonathan Hickman coming back to Marvel. But at the time that we talked, it had not been revealed precisely what he was working on. He is going to be writing 2 X-Men minis, House of X, and I believe I saw somewhere, maybe in a Marvel video online, that it's not Powers of X, but it's Powers of 10. Obviously, playing on Roman numeral X as 10. So, Jay, what do you think about these bad boys?
I still have yet to read much Hickman, including his Fantastic Four, Future Foundation
Because you're a
work,
monster.
Because I'm a monster, and there is no excuse, and I am completely without any sort of remorse and what have you. But, no, this seems, like something that'd be right up his alley. Like you guys guessed, it wasn't going to be some sort of weird obscurity that they would necessarily hand him. If anything, I would see it kind of like the Bendis treatment over at DC. Give him, a flagship title or flagship characters. And then if he wants to play around and, some general weirdness as well, then, go right ahead. But, for a big announcement, I didn't think that it was going to be anything like the Eternals or anything like that, just because it's not necessarily high profile. But no, this seems...
Well, they already planned to give the Eternals to Angelina Jolie anyway, so, they had a plan the whole time.
That's true. But no, this... it sounds... there are very few plot details, if any at all. But I really like that teaser image with just X-Men characters from across the team's history. Like you got swashbuckling Nightcrawler and Wolverine in his brown and yellow suit, and Bishop, and I think that was Nimrod in there, and Gateway, and all sorts of, just random characters strewn about. So, sounds pretty cool.
I could be just completely blind, but it seems like there's one very notable missing character on here, and that's the Juggernaut. I don't see Juggernaut.
I'm looking back over at 2 live radio people. Remember,
there's a pretty rad, pretty rad Magneto, and we see Weapon X Logan. We also see Wolverine in the brown and yellow, which is as it should be. But I don't see Juggernaut.
And Mohawk Storm, and then Dazzler, and yeah, Lilandra, a little tiny Havoc who is adorable.
I know.
But yeah, no Juggernaut.
Well, anyway, I'm excited about the book as a whole, or the books rather. I mean, Hickman made me a fan of the Fantastic Four. Before I read Hickman's Fantastic Four, I hadn't read any Fantastic Four, and I know this is going to surprise everybody, but here it is. I thought that the Thing was the dorkiest character in any story, anywhere, anytime. And now that ever-loving, blue-eyed, big old armor-plated softy is right up there with Batman on my list of top characters. So,
as he should be. I haven't even read much Fantastic Four, and I knew that he was awesome.
Yeah, so. Well, we can't all be you, Jay. But anyway, I'm hoping that Hickman will tip me into the X-Men a little more. I've dipped my toes in a little bit here and there with some of the older stuff, but I'm hoping that he gets me into it, and I'm really holding out hope that at the end of these two minis, he's going to come aboard for an ongoing title. Like maybe they'll give him Uncanny.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, that beeping means that this story is done. So we're going to move on to the next
in the background.
Ooh, brownies! It's a lot more eventful at Jay's house than mine tonight, folks, because he has brownies, and I'm just staring at a brown wall. So
I'm pretty sure the brownies are not for me. So
well, okay,
lateral move at best.
Yeah, in that case, I think I'm better off because I don't have unattainable brownies just feet away
taunting
from me.
You.
So the next story we're going to discuss is Bob Burton's Flaming Carrot. I had never heard of this before you texted me earlier, Jay. What the heck is up with Flaming Carrot?
So I have never read Flaming Carrot, but he is one of those characters I've at least known of, just because he would always come up in like Wizard magazine and like just in just general discussions about comics for just really weird characters. Do you know Mystery Men? Did you ever at least see that movie? With Ben Stiller?
I saw bits and pieces. I think I actually bought it on sale on iTunes a few months ago and have yet to watch it. But
I mean, they originated in a Flaming Carrot comic.
Oh wow!
So there's a at least tangential pop culture stamp that he has there, but not that Mystery Men is necessarily a classic of the genre or anything, even though William H. Macy has a absolutely incredible line toward the end of it about Destiny ordering lobster, so you at least need to watch it for that. But no, I mean, so I've never read Flaming Carrot. I just know that it's one of those weird characters because just reading over that press release that came out, it kind of describes him, and he's a guy that wears a giant carrot mask that is also on fire, and he also wears flippers in case he needs to go swimming. So,
well, naturally,
it's just a really, really bizarre idea, and one of those things that could only work in comics and is just delightful.
Well, I don't really have anything else to say except it's called Flaming Carrot, therefore I will check it out.
And I think I don't know if you even said it, but burying the lead, there's going to be an omnibus of Flaming Carrot stories. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, so the news wasn't merely the existence, but that there's going to be an omnibus.
Yes.
Okay, lovely. Well, that's actually going to do it for the news tonight, folks. We're running lean and mean because we've got a lot of Detective Comics to talk about. But before we get there...
So the question mark on the third bullet point wasn't for some sort of mystery news item that you were going to surprise me with. It was you don't have anything else to fill in that slot?
I was leaving it open for you if you had something compelling, but barring that, we're going to roll right along.
All right, yeah, let's roll right along. So we have a listener question from... our good friend, Martinez XYZ, known as Cinematic Universe on Twitter. He says, here's another topic idea for the podcast. Analog characters. Was going through the latest Avengers arc and noticed this version of the Squadron Supreme looks even more like to the Justice League. What's your guys' favorite, most liked analog teams from the big two? So, yeah, he has a picture of the Squadron Supreme, and I really just off the top of my head, I don't know who these characters are, but you've got someone who's clearly a Batman analog, a Superman analog, a Wonder Woman guy who at least has a face or a mask like a Atom Smasher. The idea of analog characters are fun. It's kind of hard to think of any, though, because a lot of the really successful ones kind of take on a life of their own, and you almost forget that they're, a knockoff or a riff or a parody.
Deadpool, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Thanos.
Yeah, Thanos or, Plastic Man, Elongated Man, and Mr. Fantastic. They all, have their own life in comics. So some of these, it's kind of hard to think of. But did you come up with any, Brian?
I think my favorite, and it's probably because I was just so tickled by it when I read it, but I was reading through a Superman collection about a year or so ago, and I was reading the story about how the original Hank Henshaw and his space crew, they had returned from space. They had been affected by radiation, like the Fantastic Four, and they started to exhibit some bizarre symptoms, including I think she was his wife, or was she his girlfriend? She was the only one, I think, that ultimately survived, but she became completely invisible. So there's some Fantastic Four analog there. Obviously, the origin is analogous as well. That's about where the similarities end. But I thought it was kind of a neat way for DC to kind of riff on the FF's origin, but not try to kind of rip off things wholesale.
Good choice, yeah. And I mean, if you don't know, listeners, Hank Henshaw becomes Cyborg Superman and, just completely destroys Coast City. And, so not really comparable to the Fantastic Four at that point, I would say. I kind of...
Unless you consider the Fantastic Four from the Ultimate Universe, whose Reed Richards becomes the Maker, who is a villain through and through, and is currently making Venom's life quite unpleasant in the Venom book.
I will take it. So yes, we do consider. This, like I said, this is kind of hard because a lot of these characters just become their own character. But one series that I read a while ago and don't remember an awful lot about, but I really enjoyed it, was Next Wave from Marvel. And I wasn't sure if it would count because I was more thinking of kind of their handler was a clear parody of Nick Fury. His name was Director Dirk Anger. So instead of Fury, you have Anger. And I think he has an eye patch on the other eye, or maybe he has two eye patches. I don't know.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 12-issue series, limited series, written by Warren Ellis and illustrated by Stewart. I can never pronounce it. Immonen, I would think. Immonen, yeah. The team is made up of established characters. You have Monster Hunter, Elsa Bloodstone, Monica Rambeau, who...
Captain Marvel for a time.
Yeah, she was Captain Marvel, and pretty sure she was like in the Luke Cage TV show, and she was a young girl in the Captain Marvel movie. Tabitha Smith, who I believe was Boom Boom Boomer, a couple of other identities with X-Force, the Machine Man, and a character called the Captain, who was previously called Captain. And then Skull, and from Wikipedia here, said the obscured words being so horrible that Captain America allegedly beat 7 shades of it out of him and left him in a dumpster with a bar of soap in his mouth. So,
wow,
these aren't exactly top tier characters, but they're led by this clear Nick Fury analog. But then, as I was just reading over it to see if it would count. Warren Ellis had the idea that this is effectively the Authority, who are also kind of parodies of, other established characters, but taking it and deconstructing it even more, because his idea was that there would be no plots, no actual character beats or arcs, no emotions, nothing, just comic book goodness through and through. So that was the idea of it, was just to be, a parody of other superhero teams. And like I said, I don't remember an awful lot about the series, other than the team fought characters like Fin Fang Foom and a horde of MODOKs that looked like Elvis Presley. So automatically,
oh my goodness,
it's the greatest comic book ever written, even though I barely remember anything of it. So I'm gonna say next wave.
Wow. I'll give an honorable mention. I don't remember what they called themselves, but in the first issue of Grant Morrison's Multiversity, Captain Carrot and his zoo crew go up against an Avengers sort of team with a Captain America type guy at the front, and it's and I think there's a Black Widow analog as well. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, which the you could just keep going, keep pulling the thread. Right. Captain Carrot and the zoo crew themselves. But
who else wants to mess with cartoon physics?
And then you've got a more serious route. You've got like Clandestine and Squadron Supreme and Watchmen. So a lot of these characters have become ingrained in pop culture anyway, even though they were initially supposed to be parodies or send-ups. And I just texted you a picture of the Elvis MODOKs, so you're welcome.
Ooh. Oh my goodness, that is amazing. Okay, yeah, that's oh my goodness.
See if it's on Marvel Unlimited, because the story is crazy bananas, clearly.
Wow.
Oh, and there are also Blue Pirates on here too. And if Blue Pirates are not the are not the thing that catches your eye first, that Elvis Presley MODOKs are clearly somewhere on the page.
All right. Well, thank you, Martinez. Good to hear from you as always, and keep them coming.
Yeah, that was a good question.
It was an excellent question. It was a lot of fun. And straight talk, I didn't actually think of my answer until just a few seconds before I said it. I was tossing a few other things around in my head. But
nice.
Yeah, so next up, we have contest updates. So a few weeks ago, we revealed a contest where we were going to give away to 3 different people a comic prize pack of a few interesting variant covers, and we're probably going to go ahead and draw a winner for that within the next week or so. We didn't get a whole lot of engagement on that one, so what may end up happening, depending on how many total entries we have when it's all done, is 1 or 2 people might just get some more comics instead of it going to 3. So there's still time, though. So if you have not, it might be kind of hard to find the original tweet or the original Facebook post. So just tweet at us and say something about the giveaway for comics, and we'll
be sure
that
to
an entry as well.
Retweet it over the next couple of days too, so it's easier to find.
Yeah, that's a good idea. But also, Jay had a fantastic idea, and we are also giving away, and this one is pinned to the top of our social media accounts. We are giving away a Batman 4-movie pack. This is the original, starting with 89 all the way through Batman and Robin, and as well as a code to redeem for a digital copy of Aquaman, the new Aquaman with Jason Momoa, the one that we loved and reviewed on Comics Now. And so that one is out there on our social media. The way to enter that, and this is where you folks who listen to the podcast really have an advantage, because you're already listening to the podcast. You're already going, some of you are going to iTunes. To enter this, you need to leave us a 5-star rating and a written review. When we get to 10 total reviews, we will go ahead and pick a winner. Now, if you've already left a written review, I'm thinking about you, Antorez, thinking about you, Justin Kowalski. You guys are entered as well. Okay, you're already entered. You did your duty. You're in the running for these things. But if you haven't left us a review yet, you've got a really good chance. It's not even a 1 in 10 chance, because 2 of the reviews were written by me and Jay. So you have a 1 in 8 chance of winning a really good prize. Those are the best odds that you'll have for the rest of your life.
Yes, and we do have 2 new reviews, so I think we can go ahead and read those now, unless you have any objections.
I think we ought to. No. Go ahead.
So, first one comes from LMHN2899. 5-star review. Says, these guys know their stuff. Avid comic fan here, and by no means anywhere close to being an expert, so these are the guys I come to for expert opinions, knowledge, and humor. Great podcast. No other comic podcasts out there come close.
Well, I agree.
Yes.
We're at the top of the heap easily. No contest at all.
Yes, no contest. Except this one, the contest for the Batman 4-pack and the Aquaman code.
Man, I should have thought of that.
That's a contest.
Maybe we're not the best.
That's a contest.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you very much. I know this guy. His name's Eli. We go to church together. So thank you very much, Eli, for that very, very kind review. The next one comes from Eldon Graham. Worth a listen, also 5 stars. Don't know what I would do without this show. Short and sweet. I would say you might, listen to other podcasts, but if you're listening to Eli, nothing else comes close. So, yeah, that would be really sad if we weren't there for you to listen to. So we do appreciate it, Eldon. Thank you very much for the kind words.
Yeah, and the rest of you guys get to reviewing. It's just a few more reviews, and then we'll do we'll do the whole prize drawing and let you know if you won on the show. So that's going to do it for our contest updates. Jay, it's time to move to the main event.
So this week we are talking about Detective Comics 1000, because who isn't talking about Detective Comics 1000? It is written by tons of people, illustrated by even more. And come on, it's the 1000th issue of Detective Comics. There's no way we weren't doing this.
Yeah.
So before we dive in, there were tons of variant covers. And I know we each picked up our own. So which variants did you end up getting, Brian?
Yeah, so from my shop, I pre-ordered one variant cover, and I skipped the main cover, but I pre-ordered the Bruce Timm 1940s variant. It's modeled after a Jerry Robinson. So you got the Joker coming out of the lamp and aiming his pistolas at Batman and Robin. It is fantastic. But then on my way out of work the other day, I'm like, you know what? This is Detective Comics 1000. I kind of want a few more covers. So I stopped by my local Second and Charles, and I picked up the 1970s variant, and that's by Bernie Wrightson. And that's one that looks notably even better in person than it did looking at it on the internet. And then I also picked up the 1990s variant by Tim Sale, and his variants for the Rebirth Batman run notwithstanding, I do really like Tim Sale's work, and I'm happy to have it. So how about you, Jay? What'd you get?
I got just a single cover, but I thought it was far and away, if not the best one, at least my favorite. I got the Michael Cho 1950s variant that has just all sorts of crazy Silver Agey Batman or Batmen on it. You got a robot Batman, a mummy Batman, a Rip Van Winkle Batman, several alien Batmans, a zebra Batman, a Batman that looks kind of like Clayface, Batman wearing a space helmet, another alien Batman, a Batman that has a turban, a Batman in a very sharp and suave suit at the very top, and then just Batman and Robin in the middle, and then a giant Batman's leg. But no, I just love this one. It's, clearly celebrating an era that's long gone by, but just leaning into it and all the crazy, silly fun that was in the 50s. So yeah, I picked this one up, and it's a pretty great riff on the style of like a Carmine Infantino and a Dick. Dick Spring. I don't know where I was going with that. I think.
Yep. Yeah. That the cover you got, that one is my regret cover, because when I was pre-ordering, I was down to choosing between the Bruce Timm and that one, and I was hoping when I stopped at Second and Charles I would find the 50s, but They didn't have any left, so
That's sad.
yeah, it's beautiful. And guys, if you're not familiar with Michael Cho, he does a lot of the cover art for the Batman omnibuses that come out. I know he's doing it for the Silver Age ones, but he did it for the Golden Age ones too, the most recent ones, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he and Doc Shaner have been kind of flip-flopping them.
Okay.
I know for sure Shaner has been doing it. Cho might, though.
Yeah, Cho's done... Well, I might be thinking about some of the Green Lantern Silver Age omnibuses, actually. Anyway, I digress for both of us.
Anyway, and I don't know if you mentioned it, but yeah, like the title trade dress on these is all great because this one has the Superman, National Comics, DC kind of bullet, and then the placement of the price and the issue number is near the top left, and then Detective Comics is in a period accurate font and style, and it even says like all new stories and has a really cool just title at the very bottom right saying featuring the night of 1000 Batmans. So that answers that. Batmans is plural for Batman.
Yeah, I love the trade dress. I can't believe I forgot to mention it because it's one of the things I noticed yesterday first. And I went ahead and tweeted out a picture on our social stuff of my 3 variant covers and the logos at the top left of each cover. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and it's neat seeing the period accurate stuff. So good job, DC. The thing I'm wondering, I didn't see Capullo's cover when I was at the shop. Have you seen it at all? Do you know if it has the sort of New 52 weird page turning DC logo, or if it has the current DC logo?
I can quickly look that up because I saw it in person. It does. Good old Jamie Drewley on Facebook posted his haul. He got every single one of the covers.
So which one does it have? Which
it's the like the page turn DC.
I'm glad they did that because that was Capullo's era on Batman.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, and I saw those in the store. I just didn't think to look at that, but man, I'm kind of wishing I picked up the 90s one too because that's my favorite, the DC Bullet logo.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't want to spend 10. Well, it's Tim Sale, so I like Tim Sale.
You know my favorite logo out of all the ones that I've seen so far is actually on my 70s Bernie Wrightson. I absolutely love the simplicity of that, and obviously that one looks the most like the current DC logo.
Yeah, and I
color
like
notwithstanding.
I like the current DC logo. So
yeah, I do too.
I mean, don't really dislike any of them per se. I even liked the page turning one after I kind of got used to it. Definitely of the logos over the years behind the bullet, I think the current one, the one that's on DC Comics right now, is probably my second favorite. I really like that one.
Yeah, it's nice.
It is. So anyway, the regular cover, of course, is by Jim Lee. I do think it's a better cover than his Action Comics cover last year, which was just a little,
for sure,
a little stiff and everything. It's still not my favorite, but it's nice getting a lot of different character representation with, Batman choke holding. Who is it? The Riddler, or is it the Joker? I've already forgotten, and I closed that page. Let me look at
the Joker.
Look it up again.
It's the Joker.
Live radio, people.
No, it's definitely the Joker.
It is, yeah. I pulled it up, and then it's a wraparound cover too, so there's more on the back. You've got Damian pretty big in the foreground. I love Nightwing in the background with Alfred. Nightwing's eating a cookie. That's really fun too. But anyway, so this issue, like we said, 96 pages of just Batman and a celebration of 80 years of Batman and 1,000 issues of Detective Comics.
All the Batmans.
All the Batmans. There are not 1,000 Batmans, but, we get pretty close. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 separate stories in here, all by All-Star Creative Teams. So let's just dive right in. Just high-level overall thoughts. What were your general thoughts about the issue, Brian?
I was trying to think about that this evening and really distill what I think about it, and I think as a visual celebration of Batman, I think I would give it some of the highest marks that I could, because I think visually, even though a lot of these are less storytelling and more just really great striking images, visually I think this is just a fantastic representation of Batman, and really a clear picture of how adaptable he is to so many different artistic approaches.
Mm-hmm.
When you factor in the writing, I think the book is a lot more hit or miss. And while there's a few stories that I like quite a bit more than the others, I think even the best stories in this anthology have some noticeable flaws, like fairly prominent noticeable flaws.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with like Action 1000. I really didn't think there was a bad story in the bunch. Even the ones that were lesser, I still thought were really great celebrations of Superman and who Superman is. And I think that's the difference here, is I think that the stories in Detective 1000 are, I mean, effectively just, let's get, really, famous writers and artists just to write some Batman stories. I don't necessarily think that these aren't celebrating Batman as a character, but it's not in the same way that Action 1000 was genuinely just celebrating different aspects of Superman and what he means to people. And
actually, I mean, you think about, I was actually talking with Andrew, I was texting with Andrew last night about how, I think he said something to the effect of, not any one of these stories in this particular book are super memorable, that you'll kind of look back at them as very memorable stories in the future. But you think about Action 1000, there's a number of them. I mean, but the one that sticks out to me, the one following the criminal from the cover of Action 1, I mean, that kind of a thing, there wasn't any attempt at something like that in this. Yeah, and that's kind of disappointing.
And that's the thing, is a lot of the stories in Action 1000 were saying things about Superman. I think some of the stories in here are trying to say things about Batman, but they aren't remarkably successful if that's what they're trying to do, even.
Yeah. Well, why don't we actually start digging in and talking about them so people can hear what we mean?
By no means is it a bad issue. It's just, it's definitely have some qualms with it, but we'll get to them. The first,
I do. Sorry, before we do dive in, I think it is kind of interesting that I think if you and I look back at the past couple of years and DC's output, I think it's totally fair to say that there has been a lot more consistently good output for Superman than there has been for Batman.
And I would completely agree with that.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess when you consider that, it really isn't that surprising that this is kind of the result that we get.
Yeah, and kind of, I mean, the build up to this issue 2 wasn't nearly as big as Action 1000. I mean, it's the second one, so it's not going to be as big as the first. That's the one that you're going to go, even if they went more all out for Detective than Action, that's going to be, I mean, that was the first landmark, issue there. That's as big as you can get the first time that you hit it.
I think too, and this is why I think that it's easier for us to find Superman stories we like in these past few years, is that I think there's a better consensus on the core things, the simplicity of who Superman is. Batman should be pretty easy to distill as well, I think, but there's a lot more competing opinions, not just in the minds of fans, but in the minds of these creators about who Batman is, who Batman ought to be, what Batman stands for. So
that's an excellent point too, because Batman is so malleable of a character and can be used in so many different stories and types of stories and situations. That, you're gonna have, maybe somebody's favorite Batman is the Batman of the 50s who, encountered aliens and, teamed up with, Batmite and, all this really really weird, goofy stuff. And then somebody else who likes some more, down to earth, Batman from like the early 90s, like with Chuck Dixon and Alan Grant and Norm Brayfogle, and all those, very street level and more of that, detective. And then others who go even further with, a Frank Miller style, just very like a war on crime and, being this warrior. So there are as many interpretations of Batman as there are Batman fans almost. And like you said, Superman, you can point and say, well, this is what makes up Superman. And with Batman, there are things that you can say, this is what makes up Batman, but he's not necessarily just pigeonholed into one type of story either. Not to say Superman is, but I think I'm confusing your initial point, but yes, I totally get it and agree with it. And I was going to mention something else. Oh, I also feel like over the past several years, at least leading up to, let's say, even Rebirth, DC almost seemed ashamed of Superman. Like they didn't know what to do with him. Even they tended to agree with the maybe the more cynical, vocal population of fandom, saying that Superman is an outdated character. He's very simple, very hard to write. He's hard to make compelling. And whether DC were purposefully acknowledging that or not, and having that mindset, you could at least see it in the fact that for a while they had no idea what to do with him. But now they have confidence in him again, in that they're giving him good writers who know what to do with the character and how to write him and make him compelling. And even though he's the most powerful man on earth, he still has, humanity and relatable traits and everything. So now Superman is a more sure-footed character in narrative than Batman is, because there's, like you said, there's not a general consensus of this is what Batman needs to be, because anybody can have a different take on Batman, and it can be just as valid as somebody else's.
Yep.
So long story short, so yes. I think that it was interesting that this was kind of a little more muted than Action 1000, but it's still pretty good. And it's also interesting reading all these stories because they are so different from one another. Like the first one is called Batman's Longest Case, by Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, Jonathan Glapion, FCO Placencia, and Tom Napolitano. It sees Batman going effectively through a case that spans years of his early career, where he picks up the initial clue in one of his first cases, and then follows it around the world, and ultimately discovers that, sorry, I got distracted by a text. Ultimately discovers that it was actually orchestrated by a group of detectives who were testing him. And this includes Detective Chimp, Elongated Man, Question, Hawk Man, Hawk Woman, Slam Bradley, and Martian Manhunter. What were your overall thoughts of this one, Brian?
Well, it's got Bobo, so I mean, enough said. No,
yes.
I was actually very distracted by the first page, not because there's anything wrong with it, but because that did not look like Capullo's Batman to me at all. I mean, if I look at the arms and everything like that, it starts to come together, but the face in particular, just it didn't look like him to me, so I got really freaked out.
Yeah,
but
I think it's because it's just so heavily shrouded in shadow that it doesn't, and the ears are a little offset. That might be part of it.
Yeah, but besides that, I actually kind of, Snyder catches a lot of crap for doing like Wikipedia drops in his stories sometimes, where he's just kind of like, it's the fact channel. But I really enjoyed that kind of stuff in The Court of Owls, his first New 52 arc on Batman with Capullo, because that kind of methodical working through working through the facts of things. That's perfectly fitting for Batman, the world's greatest detective. So I did enjoy that. I'm not sure how I feel about the whole, like, the guild, and that it took him, all this time to figure out that, there was actually a benevolent group behind it all. But it looked nice. I thought it was good and readable, and I enjoyed it. And seeing Bobo and Martian Manhunter at the end of all that, that kind of thing was kind of nice. And after enjoying Venditti and Hitch's Hawkman recently, seeing Carter there was also really, really nice.
Yeah, see, I was kind of reverse. I wasn't necessarily disliking it, but it was getting to a point where it's like, okay, this is way too complex and way too intricate. Just one of those almost overwritten, trying really hard to outsmart, the readers and even Batman himself, which, is admirable, but sometimes can go a little bit too far. But then when finding out that, yes, it was orchestrated, there were people there purposefully, just putting all these clues together just for Batman to follow. It wasn't a criminal who was trying to bait him along and string him along.
Yeah.
It was people. I liked that.
Snyder is not the sole culprit behind the mystery.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yep.
So that twist is when I actually started liking it. I was like, oh, it was, incredibly thought out and incredibly complex because somebody made it incredibly thought out and complex as a text.
Right.
So I appreciated that. And yeah, I mean, you have Slam Bradley and Detective Chimp in the same comic book, and you have my money already. So, like you said, it's a very well illustrated. I loved especially some of the individual panels whenever Bruce was going around the world. I loved one especially where he's kind of climbing the snowy mountain. It's just, some gorgeous use of whites and the blue of the cape and the black of the cabin that he's going towards. Just a really, lovely, striking image there. And some really, really good inks from Glapion. So it looked really good. The twist was fun. It was enjoyable. It was a good way to start off the issue. I'll say that.
I agree.
All right. So second story is Manufactured for Use by Kevin Smith, Jim Lee, Scott Williams, Alex Sinclair, and Todd Klein. This has some Matches Malone action, which was, nice to see. Matches Malone, of course, being a moniker that Bruce uses when he needs to go undercover in the criminal underworld. He discovers what's called the Gotham Gift Shop, where they have the props and everything used in various crimes by supercriminals. And Matches purchases the gun used to murder the Waynes. And at the very end, Alfred kind of chastises Bruce for wanting to put this in a trophy case. But Bruce says it's not going to be a trophy. And he melts it down and recasts it as a chest plate, puts it behind the yellow oval on his suit, and now it becomes part of his armor. So what did you think of this one?
I like it overall. You and I discussed this the other day. I don't like the way that Smith is kind of phrasing things here at the end, that I'm going to make that metal pay for its sins. I mean, that kind of false equivalence that, like, the gun is guilty.
Right.
Is that doesn't really fit with, to me at least, that doesn't fit with the way that Bruce would look at the world. Like, he would recognize that the gun isn't guilty, but I, at the same time, I appreciate the poetics of what Smith is doing there. Artistically, I would agree with what you said on the Batman on Film podcast the other day, that this is some of Lee's best sequential art that I've seen in a long time. I will say that in terms of his finishes, I think that Batman is probably the least compelling character in the book, which is kind of weird. If you look at the final panel, that is not a good finish on Batman. It's certainly not up to Lee's usual standards. the best characters in this story really are Matches and the proprietor of the Gotham gift shop.
Yeah, good call. I mean, like you said, I do think that this is some of the because Lee has been doing more just covers if he's been illustrating at all. Did some work I think on like Scooby Apocalypse, and then
Yep.
Suicide Squad. He was on that for a few issues, and he's filled in here and there, but he hasn't done a lot of sequential storytelling in years and years. And I did like especially I liked the what was going on behind the narration, just seeing Batman encounter a bunch of different villains in his rogues gallery as they try to attack him, and the focal point being on his chest symbol, which I always love to see. I know it's not everybody's favorite, but I love the yellow oval with the bat symbol in it. But
you know what I love about this is that typically when you see the yellow oval, you see the capsule utility belt, but I actually love that Lee went with the yellow oval and the pouches.
Yeah, they made a couple of interesting choices here because it's almost like his Hush costume if it had the blue gloves, trunks, and cowl and boots. But there's also the yellow oval. But then, especially on the last page, it has like the purple interior of the cape on the Rebirth cape. That may have just been some of the lighting, like a lighting effect that not Scott Williams, Alex Sinclair was using. But I know a lot of people didn't like that either, but I kind of liked the purple lining on the inside. I thought it gave it an interesting pop of color.
Yeah, I love the purple lining. It looks really good, and I don't think you can argue against it in terms of function either, because in the dark of night, that's still going to be super dark.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they say, like an actual ninja wouldn't wear all black because that's going to stand out. They would wear like darker blues and grays, so that would make him much more stealthy. But no, I liked all the different confrontations he had here with some big names. You've got Penguin and Mr. Freeze and Clayface, but then got like Firefly and Bane and Onomatopoeia, which of course Kevin Smith's going to use him.
He created Onomatopoeia, correct?
He did, yeah. I think it was originally in Green Arrow, though. I think it was a Green Arrow villain first, but then he came back in that Widening Gyre series that he never actually finished, and I never I never actually started, so I'm not sure. But no, this is one of the stories in here, and this is going to be a common theme for a lot of these, that I liked maybe the intent and message more than I liked the execution, even if the execution was fine. And I thought the execution here was fine.
Sure.
Only thing I want to bring up that I didn't even realize is Andrew, we were talking the other day, and he mentioned that Kevin Smith clearly ripped this off of
told me that.
the unproduced animated episode that I was like, I remember hearing about that, at least the outline of like the life of a gun, and it starts, with it being manufactured, and then it goes to it being, sold in the store, and then ultimately used to murder. I think the Waynes is what they were going to do with it. I didn't remember if the outline ended with Bruce melting it down and using it. I think Andrew was saying he used it as maybe a filament on the tombstones, on Thomas and Martha's tombstones. So he didn't actually incorporate it in his costume. But I was like, yeah, that is pretty close. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to steal from the best, I guess. And Batman the Animated Series, is the best.
The best panel in this entire story, though, by far, it's the ventriloquist panel.
Yes,
because you've got action in all the other ones. Batman's getting hit. He's taking these blows to the symbol, and then in the panel with the
Scarface is just screaming at us. Yeah, I love that.
It's wonderful.
And I don't necessarily love the ventriloquist. Not in my top 20 favorite Batman characters or villains. But I was delighted with that. I was filled with glee just seeing such a silly image.
I love the ventriloquist when he when writers are not changing the beginning of his words.
Oh gosh.
Which means I pretty much love him about 1% of the time.
Yes. Love you, Alan Grant. You're amazing, and your work with Norm Brayfogle was the best. But, geez, replacing every B with G was, yeah.
It was just a stroke.
Yes. Anyway, next story. The Legend of Newt Brody by Paul Dini, Dustin Nguyen, Derek Friedhoffs, John Cleese, and Steve Wands. This is the tale of a bumbling henchman named Newt Brody, who always seems to be in the worst places at the worst times for the villains that he's working for. And we see his various misadventures and ultimately discover that Newt Brody is not the alias of one member of the Bat family, but an alias that they have all used to infiltrate the underworld. And I'm going to come out and say it. I thought this was pretty delightful.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this was a blast. I mean, you could read this without the credits, and if you don't come to the conclusion that this was written by Paul Dini, then you probably haven't watched much of the animated series, and you certainly haven't read any of his prior stuff on Detective Comics.
Because you've got the Carpenter and the March Hare in there, so clearly this is Paul Dini, because he likes to resurrect. And I like those characters, so I like.
Well, and you've got the Hatter and Tweedledee and Tweedledum. There was a really good Hatter story buried, I think, in Heart of Hush as well. So.
This is, it's just one of those stories that it's not deep. That's not to say that the writing or anything is shallow. It's really not trying to say anything. It's just trying to be, fun and maybe even introduce a new concept and idea into the world of Batman. And whether anybody runs with this or not, I still love the idea of each member of the Bat family using the guise of a henchman to assist in Batman's war on crime. I mean, it's fun, and it makes sense too.
Yeah, it does. And maybe I'm biased because, Steve Wands is probably one of the closest things to a friend that I have in the industry. Steve's a great guy. I've interviewed him a number of times, and he's been on the show. But I think his lettering here is some of the best in the entire book, and a lot of that just comes down to his sensibilities. All of the lettering in here is solid, just from a technical perspective. But his choice of fonts and I think aesthetically, it fits this better than anybody else's.
Yeah, I agree. I like the typewriter script that he uses in some of the narration. Like the different colored boxes that he uses for other people's monologuing. And it's just overall clean balloon placement and just, really, really good lettering throughout.
Yep.
I would agree. So that is, spoilers, the end of my appreciation for the stories for a stretch here.
Oh, one more note on this one. Issue's a lot of fun. Damian is pretty tiny in that last panel.
Yeah, but John's always giving him crap for being super short and Super Son, so it tracks.
I know, but he's like the size of a puppy.
Yeah, but still. No, he is. But it's also Dustin Nguyen who kind of makes the characters, even if he doesn't go straight up Lil Gotham with them, they aren't exactly as imposing as like Jim Lee would do. Everybody else has kind of slight frames, but I do see what you're saying.
Yeah,
but it fits with the joke too that he says, "Just call me Newt Brody Jr."
And he does look like a kid. If you mentioned Jim Lee's name just a second ago, if you go back and read Superman Unchained, Scott Snyder and Jim Lee, and I think the first or second page of that book, there's a little kid running away from something or other, and that kid does not look like a kid. So at least he looks like a kid.
Yes. So next story is The Batman's Design by Warren Ellis, Becky Cloonan, Jordi Belair, and Simon Boland. This, on a concept level, is kind of cool. Batman tracks some goons down to a warehouse, and he actually has this warehouse rigged and booby-trapped to effectively have just various painful deterrents, let's say, to help
Christmas ornaments,
Yes.
nails sticking up out of the stairs.
Yes.
To
To help subdue criminals. It's an interesting idea, but it ends, and I have no idea what the ending is supposed to mean, and I've read this like 3 times. So, what did you think of this one?
I think this is probably my favorite in the book in terms of the artwork, and probably my second favorite in terms of the lettering. I love Simon Boland's lettering work. I first encountered him on Greg Pak's creator-owned Kingsway West from Dark Horse years ago. And I think his lettering is, again, he's talking about his sensibilities. I think that the font that he uses in the narration boxes here so perfectly fits with what Cloonan and Belair deliver in the artwork here. And then, man, Cloonan and Belair, there are so many amazing shots of Batman in here. I mean, it's almost like a combination of animated series sensibilities and Declan Shalvey.
Oh yeah.
You've got the page with the credits. You've got Batman bursting through a window, and then just almost like a tile mosaic behind him, but it's actually windows. It's the glass from the large window area that he was breaking through. That's amazing. The opposite page from there, rear shot of Batman standing, getting out of the Batmobile. Just amazing stuff. But I think that the writing is kind of a dumpster fire.
That is putting it kindly. Yes.
I do not like this Batman. I love the way he looks. He's a handsome Batman, but it's funny. When I was listening to you, and I'll plug it again, guys. Jay was on the Batman on Film podcast, and that was a really
very last minute.
Yeah, but it was I mean, all 4 of you guys that were on there, I thought it was a great discussion of this issue. I thought you guys were all really fair and really honest, and what more can you ask for? So everybody, you should listen to that.
I'm not saying very last minute as an excuse. I mean, it's hilarious how last minute it was, because Ryan Haas DM'd me on Twitter at like 10:30 and said, "Hey, do you want to be on here if you've already read this?" And I was like, "Do you mean soon, as in, within the next few days, or?" And he's like, "Oh, like now." So I took a 3-minute shower and forgot that I hadn't downloaded Google Chrome on the computer that I was using. So I downloaded Chrome so we could use Cast, and then we had a discussion on it. But like I said on there, this Batman is a borderline sadist. If this was a silent comic with like no narration, no dialogue or anything, it may be my favorite story, just because of how gorgeous it is, how brilliantly laid out each page is. Cloonan and Belair, how they work together with Jordy uses a very limited color palette. It's mostly blues and grays, and then a lot of reds and oranges, more orange than anything, and then just black. So there's not an awful lot of detail in a lot of variety in the coloring, but every color choice fits. Everything is perfect.
It does, and she has this knack, and she does this when she colors a lot of the work that I've seen her do, where it's very flat-ish. There's still, if you look closely, there's actually plenty of rendering, but overall, it's a somewhat flat look, and I love it. What I was going to say though is that it's funny. I mentioned that Cloonan's work has a bit of a resemblance to Declan Shalvey's work. The way that Ellis writes Batman, he's more of a Moon Knight character, and Warren Ellis, Declan Shalvey, Jordy Belair, all worked together on Moon Knight a couple years ago. Interestingly enough. So, but that kind of sadistic crime fighter. I mean, I'm sure people hate hearing the comparisons between Batman and Moon Knight, especially Moon Knight fans. But yeah, it is more of a Moon Knight thing, just sort of, it's just sort of cocky delighting in the pain of the people that he's fighting against.
And he mentions like early on that, these guys are hopped up on illegal, drugs, and then they have like these bionic upgrades and, things like that. And Batman says, I'm delighted. It means I don't have to be gentle. And,
yeah.
I mean, I get it. I get the idea that Batman is, can wreck a bunch of dudes and we all love it. My problem is in him having a perverse glee about it.
Yeah, it's, it's funny, like, you think about Frank Miller in Dark Knight Returns, right? And it's a fine line that you got to walk with Batman when he's his edgiest. But I think Miller stopped short of Batman being a sadist and taking glee in the pain. I mean, you think about the rematch with the mutant leader and the whole speech about being a surgeon. Yeah. And this is the operating table.
And he even says that you may have been going there, but I mean, he even says, there's a tiny voice in my mind saying that I should stop, that I've gone far enough, and I ignore it. So, I mean, there is, even though he goes further than he probably knows he should, he at least has the awareness that, you could even interpret it as, for a normal person, this would be far enough and this might do the job. But he's, thinking, I'm going to ignore it because this guy needs it worse because, the mutant leader clearly was not an average Joe. And same with these guys, even though they are on, these illegal performance enhancing, drugs and having these, this armor and weapons and everything. I just don't like the idea that Batman effectively funneled these guys into this place just so he could beat the crap out of them.
Yeah.
Even if they, committed a crime. And I mean, I may just be reading too much into it. I don't know. But then
no, I was going to say, and as we're talking about this, I'm thinking, we talked about before we started getting into each individual stories, there's going to be somebody who listens to this episode and they're going to be like, that was my favorite story in the book because Batman is something different to them. Yeah. So and that's okay.
And you know what? I am glad that this is somebody's favorite. And I don't mean that in a patronizing, condescending way. I'm glad that this story gave somebody some enjoyment, that they enjoyed this more than some of the stories that I enjoyed, because that means that somebody out there enjoyed it. And I'm glad for that. I genuinely am. I just don't, what I do get about this story, I don't like. And then there are things that I don't get, like the ending, because all of a sudden Batman decides he's going to try to talk this guy down.
Right.
But then even what he's saying to him doesn't really, I mean, there's no context for it. It doesn't really mean anything what he's saying. He's saying, look at me. I'm already dead. I'm trapped in this place and all I do is haunt the living. Is that what you want for yourself? And then the guy says no and hands over a detonator. I mean, I don't know what Ellis is trying to say here.
Yeah, I don't either, and I don't think it really will bear any fruit for us to try to figure it out.
Nope. I do like the final. I do like the final shot in the little bat symbol though, where he's handing over the detonator. That was a cool visual cue.
I do too, but here's my one problem with that, and it's a nitpicky thing. Okay, that is not the bat symbol that Cloonan drew on Batman's chest in the rest of the book.
Nope, it is
or
not.
The rest of the story.
Nope.
So,
but again, I mean, if this was take away all the dialogue and all the narration, this may be my favorite story visually. You posted, on Twitter and Facebook and everything, throw all the money to get Becky Cloonan and let's even say Jordy Belair on a Batman miniseries. Yeah. I love this aesthetic. Just not the running. But anyway.
Yeah, and the moral of this story, even if you don't get the ending, is that Batman's parents, they should really, really, really check the van extra careful before they go to the airport to fly to Paris, because when you leave Batman home alone, this is kind of what happens.
Yes. This is effectively Batman in Home Alone.
Yes.
All right, next story is Return to Crime Alley by the legendary Denny O'Neil with
Bruce, no!
with art from Steve Epting, Elizabeth Brightweiser.
Okay, I'm done.
Elizabeth Brightweiser on colors, and World Design doing the letters. I think you said presumably Darren Bennett. This is good a guess.
Yeah, it's Darren's studio, and I mean he's got some guys that work with him like Tom Napolitano, and I think he might have a few other folks. They do more than just lettering, but I think generally when it's credited as just And World, it's usually Darren.
Cool. Yeah, I mean I'd believe it. But yeah, this story is There Is No Hope in Crime Alley, but worse. What are your thoughts, Brian?
I'm not crazy about it. I mean, obviously I'm sitting here mocking the first page, and the whole Leslie versus Bruce thing is not new territory, and I don't think I've ever encountered an instance of it that I really liked. Because I think Leslie's always written as kind of naive when they're having these discussions. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can take on what Batman does without coming across as naive, but yeah, she kind of does, and that's not even the worst thing here. It's really, how do I put this? It's Bruce, no.
Yeah, like I said, this is, if not the worst story, it's definitely the most disappointing story. Because it's Denny O'Neil going back to one of the most famous stories he wrote when he was writing Batman, which was There's No Hope in Crime Alley. Except everything that story was there for is retread here. But there's no hope with it.
Right.
There's no hope in Crime Alley. The point of
There's
that
hope.
is that Leslie Tompkins is there to help, even if Batman isn't. And this is, I mean, it's incredibly derivative of that story, down to someone pulling a gun on Bruce and him saying, you dare pull a gun on me, and then backhanding the guy. I mean, that is lifted directly from There's No Hope in Crime Alley. And I mean, it is illustrated incredibly well. I love that shot of Bruce kind of looming over, the Waynes being murdered. That was a very, kind of 70s Neal Adams, like a Dick Giordano kind of thing to do there. But the story does not say anything new. And what it does say is effectively just an excuse to have Leslie Tompkins, chew Bruce out for what he does, but doesn't have any other context for it. I did not like this story at all.
Yeah, I didn't either, and I don't really think I have anything else to say about it. There's not a lot to it, and what is there, I'm just not crazy about.
Yeah, I mean, just the thing about Leslie is, I love the idea of Leslie Tompkins and the purpose that she serves. Somebody who knows that maybe Batman is a necessary evil for Bruce, but will not enable it. And not to say that Alfred is necessarily an enabler, but he is the one that, goes along.
Is enabling.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he does go along with him on the crusade because he recognizes that it is, necessary. And, but Leslie's also there to, help in this neighborhood if Bruce isn't there, or when there is nobody else there in this place that created Batman, there is still somebody there doing good in the world. It's kind of a similar theme to the Kevin Smith Manufactured for Use, that story. It's Bruce taking something that was used for death and then using it as giving it a new purpose. The point of the There's No Hope in Crime Alley story is to say that even though this place created Batman because of a horrible crime, there are still good people living there who are still willing to help their fellow man and everything. This story doesn't do that, so let's just move on to the next one. Next one is Heretic by Christopher Priest, Neal Adams, Dave Stewart, and Willie Shubert. I said it before, I barely remember a single thing about this story.
Yeah, for sure. And well, here's one thing I remember. It's that right after a story written by Denny O'Neil, you have his frequent collaborator from the 70s illustrating the next story. Why did they not have O'Neil and Adams working together for this?
On the one hand, I think for these, they were wanting to get maybe, a different mix of writers and artists just to see how they would play off of each other. But then, I mean, if they were doing that, then why did Snyder and Capullo and Tomasi and Monkey and King and Daniel and Jones and Tynan and it's, I don't know. I mean, if that was the intent, sure, I kind of get that. But for a lot of these, that's part of my problem with it too, is it's just writers and artists whose styles, just don't mix at all. And I mean, I'm not kidding when I said I don't remember much about this story, because I really don't. It's effectively, Batman encounters a gang and then encounters Ra's al Ghul because he discovers that maybe they're part of, the League of Assassins, and ultimately finds out that one of the members of this gang hates Batman because his younger brother found Bruce Wayne's wallet and was seduced by money and capitalism and everything. And I mean, and then lots of Christopher Priesty random bouncing around in continuity and with little title cards on each page that, maybe have something to do with what somebody says in like one dialogue box. I don't hate this story. I just, it does nothing for me. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think does nothing for me is the kindest thing I could say about the latter day work of Neal Adams.
Yes.
And Priest just doesn't. There are moments where Priest will where I'll like what Priest does, but none of those moments occurred in this story,
or have occurred in the past like 5 years. I'll say that.
Yeah,
I do kind of love how when Batman is tracking down Ra's al Ghul, he stops him by wrecking into his limo with the Batmobile. That's such an un-Batman thing to do, but kind of hilarious. But yeah, I mean, to be fair, some of Adams, some of his composition is great. His layouts and the cinematic kind of widescreen shots that he's doing on some of these pages is still great. It's just his character work and figures are showing age, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, I'll go ahead and bang the drum I always bang and say that had he been colored differently, his work probably would have looked a lot better than it does here too.
Yeah,
so.
Completely agree. I can almost guarantee this was probably digital coloring, which I don't think works with this style at all.
Yeah. So, well, moving on to what I would consider the best looking story that I don't like the art on for this issue.
Yes. This is I Know. It has nothing to do with Han Solo and Princess Leia.
Weep.
By Brian Michael Bendis, Alex Maleev, and Josh Reed. It is about how late in life Oswald Cobblepot encounters a crippled, supposedly mute Bruce Wayne and tells him that all this time he has known that he is Batman, and he has kept that secret because he knew that was the only thing keeping him alive. And then Bruce Wayne shocks him and effectively laughs at him, and that's it. You kind of played your hand there, but what did you think of this one here?
I do actually like a lot of the artwork. I was just kind of being a little funny there because that first page and really any of the stuff with Bruce and Oswald in the present looks kind of bland to me. But the stuff in the past is actually pretty interesting, and I mean, I think Maleev is a super talented artist. I mean, if you've seen his work on Daredevil, it's really, really good stuff.
If nothing else, this story makes me want to read their run on Daredevil.
Yeah, I think my favorite part about this story is just the things that harken back to Batman Returns Penguin a little bit.
Yeah.
The Penguin soldiers and just the look of him in some of these pages. But I overall just the idea of Oswald Cobblepot being the one who knows Batman's identity of all the people that might know it, I don't like that. I don't think it stands up.
Yeah, I mean, I could see why and how it could work. I mean, like the Joker, I think just doesn't care. I think Penguin would almost have the same mentality and response that Lex Luthor has when he finds out that Superman is Clark Kent. He wouldn't think that Bruce Wayne would be capable of being Batman.
Yeah, that's stupid fop.
Yeah, exactly. Because Penguin is so stuffy and pretentious about himself, he doesn't think that somebody as perfect as Bruce Wayne could be someone like Batman. I mean, overall, I liked the visual style here. Did not like the weird yellow bat symbol and like the really, really, really thin wings on it. Didn't like that. Otherwise, I liked the visual style here. Loved some of the coloring, like especially when Oswald sees Bruce like at a movie premiere and a bunch of flashing lights and just like pink. Just pinks and blacks, and then when he sees him, through a yellow window in a restaurant, really interesting choices, but gave it a really, really kind of fresh look here that I wasn't quite expecting. But I mean, again, the idea is kind of interesting. I just think that the payoff, it really didn't. Bruce just shocking him, saying, I always knew it, but you're a coward. You've always been a coward, and that's all you'll ever be. It was like, okay. I mean, the ending just fell flat for me.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, really, honestly, if it had just been, frankly, just redo the final page, not to say that I can tell, an actual comic book writer how they should end a story, but just redo the final page, just have Bruce sitting there silent while, Oswald's waiting for him to say something, and then he never does, and then he just walks off, and then Bruce, when he's alone, says, "Good visit." I think that would have been a much more powerful ending. Yeah,
the shock, I guess the shock undermines whatever seriousness he was trying to go for, so...
Yeah, I mean,
which was probably part of the point.
Yeah, exactly.
He probably wanted to liven it up a little bit there at the end.
Sure. I mean, of this stretch of like 5 stories that I really didn't like very much, this is the one that I liked the most. I'll say that.
And here comes a real prize winner.
So we have The Last Crime in Gotham.
By the way, spoiler alert, guys. The Last Crime in Gotham was committed by the person that designed the mask for Bruce's daughter, Echo.
Yeah.
Yeah. That thing is so stupid.
But we'll get there. Last Crime in Gotham by Geoff Johns, Kelly Jones, Michelle Madsen, and Rob Lee. It's a story in the future, or at least a vision of the future, where Batman and Catwoman, who are married now, have a daughter named Echo, and Damian Wayne is still Robin, and a little beefy.
Yeah,
and then
I think I see some quite a bit of marbling on that beef, but beefy nonetheless.
Yes. And then Ace the Bat-Hound. They discover a crime scene at a birthday party where everybody has been murdered, and the murder was perpetrated by the son of the Joker, or Joker Jr., or whatever. Apparently, Jason Todd and Barbara Gordon are an item, which is the worst thing that could possibly ever happen, ever in the history of humanity. And then it fades out to Batman sitting in the Batcave and Alfred giving him kind of a pithy, I hope you made your wish, happy birthday, sir, remark. Yeah, I don't think either one of us like this one very much.
Yeah, I like the very high 1,000-foot concept of Batman's making a wish. He thinks of a future life that he could have, and finally reaching that goal of making Gotham a better place to be. But man, the devil is in the details, and it's just even before we get to how disharmonious Jones's artwork is with what Johns is trying to do here. It's just it's gross.
Yeah, yeah. Again, the idea is fine. Bruce envisioning a future where there is no more crime in Gotham. I totally get that. That's kind of part of the point of Batman is
right.
Imagining where he's no longer needed because there's no more crime. But this final crime there's no impact or punch with it. I mean, it's just a bunch of people died at the hands of the son of his greatest enemy, who then killed himself. And it's just
good game, team. Let's go home.
Yeah, and again, I mean, just some random thing. One thing that I read, I think it was on Elena's review on Batman News the other day, that I didn't pick up. I kind of rolled my eyes at it when I initially read through it, but I didn't think about it. Was Jason and Barbara apparently being an item. And it's like, oh my gosh, is Johns going to try to push that in the Three Jokers story? Which I really hope he doesn't.
That would be pretty terrible.
Yeah. Best thing
Where does that even come from?
Nowhere. That's the problem. But I mean, I will say I'll give Jones some props. Ace the Bat-Hound looks like a good boy. He draws, a pretty solid doggy there.
And he's got a righteous collar there.
Yes, with the pouches and the capsules. So we're both happy with his collar. I do like the visual idea where the opening and closing pages, with starting on the candles, Bruce lights it. And then, just gets closer and closer on the flame, and that turns into the bat signal in the sky. I liked that. And then the reverse of that at the end, where the signal's shining in the sky, and then Bruce is almost enveloped in the smoke and the clouds. And then that comes back down to the smoke emanating from the flame on the candle. And then Bruce is right back where he began. I kind of liked that visual symmetry there. There's a good idea. I mean, it's Jones, so his style is an acquired taste. But again, I like the staging and the layouts there and the idea of it. So I'll at least give him props for that. But yeah, everything else. I mean, I don't think he can draw women very well, and he really does not draw Catwoman very well. And I'm not saying that they even need to be like super sexy or attractive. They just something looks off about how he draws women, especially here.
Yes. Agreed. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. I'm with you.
So yeah, we're done with this one. Next is The Precedent by James Tynion IV, Alvaro Martinez Bueno, Raul Fernandez, Brad Anderson, and Sal Cipriano. This is, I believe, the shortest story in the whole collection. And I'll come out and say it. I think this is the best one of everyone collected here. It's Bruce and Alfred discussing the precedent he set by inviting Dick Grayson into their lives, but not a precedent that Bruce looks at negatively, like you might be thinking that, well, if I let him in, I'm going to have to work with other people. He's not hesitant because he's wanting to work alone. In fact, there's not even a hesitance. It's just, you know what? This is going to set a precedent that whenever we find people in need, we're going to have to help them because we've already opened that door. And it just gives you a really good breakdown of Dick Grayson without actually having Dick Grayson necessarily live through most of it because he's in the other room while they're discussing this. But just a good crash course of his time as Robin, as Titan, as Nightwing, and then how he benefits Bruce as much as Bruce benefits him. So, so what were your thoughts on this one?
This reminded me of the early days of Tynion on Detective Comics when Rebirth began, in the sense that Tynion showed just how much he got the characters that he was writing back then, and we both agree that he lost his way. A few arcs in there, but this I think is kind of a return to form for him, and I really enjoyed it too. I also really enjoyed. This is kind of a reunion of the creative team. I mean, Tynion and Martinez Bueno are working together on Justice League Dark, but they also worked together a lot on Tynion's run on Detective. I think maybe the colorist when they were working on Detective was Adriano Lucas and not Brad Anderson. But Sal Cipriano actually finished out Tynion's run on letters. I think he ended up lettering half or more of Tynion's run. So it's kind of cool to see them coming together on this again as well. And man, the work from all of them is really, really solid.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of dialogue here, but it's never it never feels like it needed like another draft or a pass-through, which is how I feel with a lot of Tynion's writing, is the intent's there. There's some good ideas and even some good individual lines, but then it's surrounded by maybe some clunkiness. It could be shorn up a bit. I'm sure that's how listeners may feel sometimes when I go on, but how I talk sometimes too. But
people on Glass podcasts shouldn't throw stones.
But no, I think every line here worked. It all worked well. Like I said, I mean, it's shorter than the other stories, so there's not as much here as far as, narrative or even page space. But everything is put exactly where it needs to be. I love the idea of just the core idea of, this is setting a precedent of we're going to be inviting more young men and women like this boy in our lives because they need it. And I love that because ultimately Batman exists to help people, even if he's out there going and, wrecking a bunch of dudes and playing Battleship in a warehouse or whatever. He is there to prevent crime and then help people who have been affected by it. So I mean, I love this. I love Alvaro or Martinez Bueno's pencils. That final splash page with Bruce and Dick with the candle and then Batman and Robin above it. Gorgeous. Just one of the best Batman anything I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it very, very loosely reminds me of that one cover from All-Star Batman and Robin. With Batman and Robin kind of in a headlight or something like that. But yeah, I really like that. I think my favorite panel in this story is a page or 2 pages back when you've got Batman and Robin kind of looking upward, and you've got Gotham and then the villains looming large up above.
Yeah, that's
really, such a cool shot.
Too. And I misspoke earlier. I said that Dick was in the other room. He was hanging on the chandelier, which
they think he's in the other room,
which is part of the punchline. Saying that it's pretty impressive that it holds all that weight. But yeah, I really like this story. In fact, I mean, in talking about it several times now, I would say I loved this story. This is about the only one in this collection that I outright loved, but I genuinely did. I loved the idea of this one. In fact, this, funny enough, this is probably the one that spiritually is most like most of the stories in Action Comics 1000, in that it's just a celebration of an aspect of Batman's character.
Well, and not just an aspect of Batman's character, but of Batman's history. And Snyder does a little bit of that in his story at the beginning. And I guess you could argue that, O'Neill's story is a reference back to No Hope in Crime Alley, so it is too. But this whole idea of something as fundamental to the Batman mythos of how Robin
as
came,
family, frankly, is what it is.
Yeah. So I really appreciate that too. And you're right. This is the one that kind of gets up to that Action Comics 1000 level of feeling a bit more significant. And I guess I'd have to disagree based on this one with Andrew's assessment that there isn't a memorable story in here, because I think this one probably is.
Yeah, definitely. But next one, also another one of those ones that I feel like the intent at least helped elevate it above the execution, is Batman's Greatest Case by Tom King, Tony Daniel, Joel Jones, Tomu More, and Clayton Cowles. This is a meeting of the Bat family while Bruce is visiting his parents' graves, and lots and lots and lots and lots of conversation and interactions back and forth with the effectively the punchline of they're all gathered there thinking that it's going to be anything other than what actually happens. Jason thinks he's being fired, which is pretty funny because if only. But what it is Bruce wanted to gather everybody together in his family so he could get a family photo. And I mean, it's kind of cornball, but I don't care. I liked the intention of it enough that it made me appreciate this one, even with its shortcomings.
I agree. There's technical issues here with the unidentifiable voiceover dialogue and stuff like that, but yeah, it's a sweet story, and I don't know. Tom King, if you're listening, which you're not, but I'll act like you are, give us more examples of Bruce doing something that he gets some kind of enjoyment from. DC Comics, just another technical note, don't put the story with the big 2-page spread at a point in the book where I really can't get to the middle. And it looks like the right half of Batman's body is eating the left.
Yeah, I didn't go that far in my physical copy because I'd heard horror stories about how tight the binding was, so I didn't even bother. No, I mean, it's like I say, it's some of the dialogue is very Tom King-y. Some of it's really funny and it works. Some of it less so. I liked, Dick and Damian together are always a hoot. Jason, going on about how, clearly this is about me and he's going to kick me out and I'm going to be fired. That was fun, and everything. Some of the other dialogue, like Tim and Stephanie, it was nice.
You want to make out?
Yeah, it was nice seeing them, but it's like that's the best you could come up with. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like still not a spoiler fan.
Yeah. And in this one, I don't blame you. I made the comment. I do think this is the best that, other than it being way too tight. I do think it's the best that Barbara's new Batgirl costume has looked. I'm not a fan of a lot of the over-designed elements that Sean Murphy put into it. It's almost perfect, except for all the weirdness that he just kind of threw on there just to make it his own, like the heel like spurs that she has, like the little scalloped claws or whatever they are. And
well, how else is she going to spur on the bat horse?
Oh, gosh. And then I know that it connects to a backpack, but her chest symbol attaching to some straps that go under her arms, it just looks weird. And yes, she needs an actual cowl. This looks better than the one that's been in her regular title, which is just like super thin. And it's like everyone must be an idiot for not recognizing her there. This is a little more full-faced, but it's still, she needs an actual cowl besides those weird ears that are clearly just on a headband or something. I don't know. But no, I mean, I like the way that I think that page is Daniel. And yeah, that page is Tony Daniel. He put some roughs up.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely Tony Daniel. I think Joel Jones did the scenes at the cemetery. That's definitely.
Yeah. Yep.
But anyway, I mean, it's a fine story. I like the intent. I like Bruce effectively taking the family photo and without actually saying it, because I don't think Batman has a single line of dialogue. Oh, he says cheese.
Cheese.
Yes, that's it. Which is like, you know what? I'll take that from Batman. After years of being a dour butthead, I will take a joke of Batman saying cheese when a picture is being taken. But I do like the symbolism of him, you know, he became Batman because he lost his family, and then taking a photo to his parents' graves to say, you know, I have a family again.
Yep.
Hopefully he didn't leave it there, because that would look really suspicious if somebody just, you know, ran across that. But, you know, whatever. It was a nice intent. So this is followed by a few pinups. The first is by Mikhail Hanin, who has been doing a lot of work on the Batman title with Tom King. It has Batman in a very early, you know, like 30s and 40s-esque cowl, but otherwise a more just the Jim Lee Hush costume design.
Well, he looks a lot like the Justice League cartoon Batman right here.
That's true, yeah, with how the ears kind of loop out a little bit.
Yep, not quite as dramatic as the original Bob Kane from Detective 27, but still kind of more bulgy.
Yeah, but effectively he's looming over Joker and Riddler, who are running down an alley. I mean, it's Hanin. It looks great, like Hanin stuff does, but and it's an interesting shot. I don't love it, but I certainly do like it. It works for me.
Yep, same.
Next is Jason Fabok's absolutely, you know, insane double page spread of Batman, his family, and then his rogues gallery. I mean, it's Fabok. Everything looks pretty great, including Clayface, who looks
Clayface wins.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, it's really good. It's kind of weird that Catwoman's the one who is front and center in the image and Batman is offset. But I guess, you know, Batman's opposite is going to be Joker, and they're on the opposing sides of the image there. So Catwoman kind of being in the middle. And I mean, it does make sense because, you know, she's not necessarily a hero, but she's not necessarily a villain either. She's kind of in between. So I suppose that
your
makes
mother
sense.
believed you could be the bridge between our two worlds. Okay. Anyway.
So anyway, yeah, I mean, it's Fabok. It looks generally pretty great. So do you have anything else to add?
You got I would just say poor Duke. In the last story, you've got Duke, who has by far the worst costume of anybody in the Bat family, up there on the rooftop standing out like a sore thumb. And then you've got him here in one of the smaller clusters of people also standing out like a sore thumb. I'm all for having a decent Duke story. They got to take away that costume first.
Yeah. I mean, just make him a regular kid again. Just someone that, you know, Batman knows and maybe, you know, is his eyes and ears on the street and, you know, doesn't necessarily need to be a hero. Let's do that. I do like how prominent and large Alfred and Gordon are. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's a great spread that I'm sure they are going to sell a crap load of prints of.
I'm sure they will.
Next is from Amanda Connor and Paul Mounts. It has Batman in the lower third or so of the image, just kind of brooding on a gargoyle. And above it, it's kind of the specter of his parents kind of falling through the sky. And Martha's pearls are effectively turning into stars. The first time I saw this, I just kind of swiped past it because it didn't really do anything for me. I saw somebody else bring up that they weren't sure what was going on here, so I actually paid more attention to it. And I mean, besides Thomas not having a mustache, which is just weird, it's an interesting image, and it's kind of, it could have been really, really cornball, I guess, or really, really misguided, but I think it kind of works. It's definitely different, but I kind of like it.
I don't think, personally, for me, I don't think that Connor's aesthetic and what she's going for here, I don't think they mesh too well. So, yeah.
All right, fair enough.
There you have it.
Fair enough. The final story is, like in Action Comics 1000, is more a prelude to what is coming next in Detective Comics. It is called Medieval by Peter Tomasi, Doug Mahnke, Jamie Mendoza, and Doug Mahnke both on inks, Dave Barron on colors, and then Rob Lee on letters. This is several just splash pages of Batman fighting different rogues with narration from the Arkham Knight to give you an idea of his perspective. Still don't know who the Arkham Knight is, what he even wants, other than he sees Batman as a bad man, which he repeats a couple of times, but also seems to have a great deal of sympathy for the villains that Batman fights, to the point that he thinks that Batman is wrong in fighting them because they're actually victims, which isn't entirely original. But I mean, I have full faith in Tomasi that he can do something great with this. So
I'm gonna call it right here. The Arkham Knight is somebody from the Arkham family.
I could see it. Yeah, definitely. I haven't put an awful lot of thought into who I think it is, because frankly, I don't even think that is going to be the point of the Arkham Knight, is who it actually is. I think it's more what they want and why they're opposing Batman. But yeah, I could definitely see that. I don't think it's Jason. That would be way too obvious.
Right. And I think when you were on the BOF cast, somebody said there was confirmation that it would not be the same identity of the Arkham Knight from
I don't
game.
think they outright said. Well, okay. I think they said that it's not going to be the same person as the game. I don't think they necessarily used Jason's name, but they did confirm that it's going to be different, and it's going to. I mean, Arkham Knight, other than the name and the look, is going to be an original character, somebody who's at least an original identity for the character, at least. So, if you want to go with like Jeremiah Arkham or some new member of the Arkham family, go for it. Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, some really great work from Mahnke, like you'd expect.
Oh yes.
And
the page with the Joker, I absolutely love everything there. Batman's posture, the look he's giving the Joker is almost like, really? Are you kidding
stabbed me with a knife?
The knife's just sticking out.
You thought that was going to work. But yeah, this is, it's an interesting prelude. Some of the a few bits of the dialogue or the narration are maybe a little overcooked, like saying that Batman is really close to Badman, and that's maybe a little too on the nose there, but
that's why here's why I think so. I say somebody from the Arkham family, but I think maybe a better supposition would be somebody who's in the mental health professions, because even the idea of that sort of word similarity.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see somebody like a psychologist saying that
some like a word association game.
Yeah, like the closeness of Batman and Badman is Batman subconsciously condemning himself.
Yes, Yeah, good point. And I mean, this narration is nothing if not a, psychoanalysis of
Yep.
Batman's war on crime. So, I could count the number of stories from Tomasi I've read that I did not enjoy, probably on one hand at most. So, I'm excited to see where he's going for this. And then, that just wraps up Detective 1000. So, let's just say, overall thoughts, and what was your favorite story in here?
I think my favorite story as a complete package has got to be The Precedent. I think that is the one all around solid story in here. But man, this is hard because I know that comics are not just the pictures of the words, but I think the thing I'm going to revisit more than anything in here is Cloonan and Belair's artwork.
Yeah, and
from the Batman's design.
And again, that is entirely fair because they were. I wouldn't say it's thankless because Warren Ellis is not a bad writer. I just don't like what he wrote here. That's the thing. It's
right.
It's not a
It wasn't fair
written...
of me to call it it wasn't fair of me to call it a dumpster fire because that implies that he failed in what he set out to do. It was more that I don't agree with what his goal was.
Yeah, it's not that what his writing was bad in the construction of the narrative and everything, even if the ending was a little out of left field. It was more just I didn't like what he was having to say with the story. So I just didn't like it. But yeah, agree with you. The Precedent was my favorite. I do love the visual aesthetic of what was it called? The Batman's design.
The Batman's design.
Yeah, Cloonan and Belair, get them on something. If not Batman, then something. And then whenever a slot opens up on Batman, get them on Batman. I love that. Overall, I don't feel like it was as successful as Action Comics 1000. But it's still a great read, and I'm glad that I picked it up and that we got to celebrate with fellow fans that Detective Comics has reached this milestone of an issue.
Absolutely, and Batman is the reason that I started liking comics, and it is just completely safe to say that even with my several and numerous complaints about some of the work in here, that I still like comics after reading it.
And I still like comics too. We're going to skip other comics we like this week, even though there were some other ones that we enjoyed. We can cover those next week just for the sake of time. So tune back in then. Spoilers. I love Dial H for Hero, so go check that out. And we can definitely talk about that some next week too. A lot of fun from Sam Humphries there. But anyway, as usual, you can find us. Just search for I'm sorry, I'm really tired. We're both really tired here. And you usually tee me up for this, so I apologize.
Yeah. So Jay, where can people find us liking comics until the next exciting episode of the Comics Now podcast?
That's right, Brian. I still love comics too. Just flip-flopping back and forth.
On the web at...
Just going for jokes here, people. Sorry. You can find us on the web. Our website is www.comics-now.com, where we will put up press releases, reviews, videos. Podcast is hosted there. Anything and everything with Comics Now, you can find there. We are on Patreon if you want to support us. Go to www.patreon.com/comicsnow. And if you want to throw a couple of bucks our way just to help us, cover production costs and keep the lights on and even get some cool stuff in return on your own, definitely do that. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, both at Comics Now Cast. Search for us on Facebook. Just search for Comics Now. You'll find us. Share us with your friends and family. Give us a like there, and leave us a star review there as well, because you can give recommendations. We definitely appreciate a 5-star review and a good recommendation there. Find us on YouTube. Search for Comics Now, and of course, we are not the no doubt fine, but definitely not us Belgian gentlemen. You can email us at comicsnowcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter at JAYAWS. Rate and review the show on iTunes. Give us a nice 5-star rating and leave us a nice review. And, of course, we will read them on the show. We would be appreciative if you did leave us some kind words. And you will definitely be entered in to win a digital copy of Aquaman and that Batman film set. So go ahead and do that so you can be entered in for that. You can give us a thumbs up on Stitcher and share us on any other podcasting platforms of your choice.
Including Spotify.
I was about to say, we are on Spotify now. That happened just about a week and a half ago. So if that's how you prefer to listen to your podcast, search for us on Spotify. As always, I am Jay, joined by Brian. This is Comics Now, and long live the Bat.